If listening to people talk about what's important to them and why they make buying decisions is interesting to you, marketing could be a great career for you. Hi, I'm Marni Allen. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Bioniq, a Series A funded startup disrupting the world of personalized vitamins. I'm a career marketeer. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've gotten to where I am, what I've learned along the way, and tips that might help you get there too.
What drew you to the marketing field?
The summer between my 2 years of my MBA program, I was an intern at Coca-Cola and realized, okay, this is it. And I've never looked back. Figuring out what you want to do and then what it's going to take to get there is... Doors don't just fly open because you say you want to do something different. You kind of have to be willing to put in some hard work to change direction. You have to wake up every day curious and excited to learn about consumers.
What do you do when you have a career change, a job change?
If you start a new job and you just sort of show up on the first day and you have no plan, you might wake up 3 months later and have achieved nothing.
Let's switch now gears to AI. How is it going to change the marketing profession?
It's an amazing opportunity how AI can transform it. At whatever stage you are in your career, taking stock of how's it going? Am I loving what I'm doing? If I'm not loving it, how do I get to the next step?
Hi, Marni. I'm so happy to have you as my guest. How are you today?
Hey, Ani. I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. Can you share with the people that listen or those who watch anything about you? What would you like listeners to learn about you? Who is Marni?
So I'm Marni Allen. I'm American, as you can tell from my accent. I'm joining you from London, where I've lived for the past 15 years. I'm a career marketeer. I've worked in brand marketing and consumer marketing for my entire career of 20 plus years. I've worked in some very big organizations, and I'm now working in a startup. So I've been on a journey of really learning and discovery for quite a long time, evolving my career to where I am now. I am a super consumer-centric marketeer. Everything that I do starts with the people that my brand is here to serve. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why consumer insights gets me excited, why that's sort of the heart of marketing, and a little bit about my journey over the last 20 plus years to get to where I am now.
What drew you to the marketing field in the beginning of your career? So what did you study? How did you start in marketing? Tell us more about that.
So I went to university in the US, and as people might know about US universities, you can study liberal arts. So I was a history major. I didn't sort of study business or economics. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. My early career, I worked in the hotel business. I worked in luxury hotels in the US and abroad. And realized on that path, I worked in sales. I realized I really didn't like sales. I didn't like actively, one-to-one selling. That was not for me. But I knew that I loved what I was seeing the marketing team do. And I started to be really interested in marketing. But when I started then exploring this career field and finding out about the kinds of companies that, would be interested in hiring early stage career marketeers, I learned that not being really fundamentally grounded in analytics, let's say, and economics and having that business background was going to get in my way of getting the kind of roles that I was interested in. So I decided to get an MBA. I went to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, studied marketing and strategy. And that really gave me, I studied economics, I studied accounting, I really got a much more business foundation. And I had a really fantastic summer internship. The summer between my 2 years of my MBA program, I was an intern at Coca-Cola, which is, one of the sort of premier brand building companies in the world. And that summer was amazing. I woke up every day going, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. This is so fun. And I would go to meetings with our advertising agency and, we'd be deeply, talking about what was going on with consumers, what were they looking for, crafting, advertising messages. And I was like, wow, this is it for me. And so it was a great sort of, foundation that got me my foot in the door for my future career. But it was also a great sort of, training wheels time. When you're in your MBA, you're still experimenting and trying things out and figuring out what it is that makes you tick and what you're going to want to do in your career. And it was great to have a 12-week experience at such a, fantastic company to really test it out and realize, okay, this is it. And I've never looked back.
I see. So from the hotel industry, you decided to have an MBA, right?
I did, because I realized that it was actually, I can remember exactly the moment. I was at a friend's wedding and I was sitting at the table with a bunch of people who worked in finance because the bride was at a bank, and a bunch of people who were in law school. And we were all going around the table talking and, hearing about the salaries that they were all making, the sort of career trajectory that they were on. We were all in our early 20s. And when it got to me and they're like, Marni, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a sales manager at a hotel. They're like, well, move on to the next person. And I left that dinner going, I can do more than this. And I want to do more than this. Like, I want to earn more. I want to be in a career that I feel like is fulfilling and that, isn't just impressive to other people, but really, gets me up in the morning wanting more, wanting this to be, what I spend my time on. And so it was not very long after that, that I started applying for business school. And it wasn't an easy transition because in my undergrad, I had not studied econ and finance and even, calculus. I totally strayed away from all of those things. And so even before I started my MBA, I actually had to do some foundational courses at a local university just to be like on par with the people that MBA programs would want to take in. So I think figuring out what you want to do and then what it's going to take to get there is maybe a tip I can give. Like doors don't just fly open because you say you want to do something different. You kind of have to be willing to put in some hard work to change directions or to get to, the place you want to go. So I did a bunch of foundational courses at George Washington University. Then I started applying for MBA programs and then I was ready. So went into MBA program and had this great summer internship. And then, because I'd been at Coca-Cola and had that on my CV, so Coca-Cola gave me a full-time job offer, so I could have stayed in Atlanta and worked for them. And then I went into the recruiting process in my second year at university, and I was speaking to a lot of consumer packaged goods companies with amazing brands, in the food industry, in beauty. And I knew that this was really the career I wanted to go into, but there was a day that Johnson & Johnson came to campus, and I was talking to the J&J rep who was interviewing me, and I'd done a little bit of research prior to the meeting, of course, as you do for an interview, and I had read the Johnson & Johnson Credo, which is really the sort of marching orders, the ethos of the whole company, which is all about serving the patients, the doctors and nurses, really being there for the human beings at the end of the product stream, let's say, helping make a difference in people's lives. And that was really my introduction to marketing in sort of the healthcare space. And I thought, wow, so, okay, J&J, great consumer brands. I worked in the over-the-counter medicines division. So I worked in, pain management, upper respiratory, cough, cold, digestive health. These are situations and conditions that make people uncomfortable, get in the way of them living, the lives they want to live. Being a part of a brand that makes a difference in people's lives in a health direction, that was it as well. Like I knew consumer marketing, and then I discovered that there was a whole field of working on brands in the healthcare space, and that sort of feel-good factor of we're very consumer-centric. We get up every day wanting to serve the people that our brands are here for and doing it in a way that really improves their health. I've never, in the last 20 plus years, done anything that wasn't in the healthcare space. So that was a great combination for me because it's a really good feeling to know that, I'm not selling biscuits. I'm not selling alcohol. I'm selling products that really make a difference in people's lives. That feels good to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listening to you, I compare with all the answers of people who were guests at my podcast, and not even single one said that they knew exactly what they're going to do. It's obvious that people have to experiment They have to have some kind of an ambition, just like you. You wanted to have a better salary, have a better life, and then experiment, because there is no other way to actually find out what do you want to do if you don't experiment. If you go into only one field, how would you know about the other fields? It's amazing how every discussion that comes up, and in the same time, all the young people I talk to, they all ask me, how did you do it? How did you know? And I always say, no, you don't know. You just have to experiment. And nobody believes me. But never mind, another proof that this is how it happens. I was reading in your profile, and you were saying that you're building ideas that disrupt the market. But how do you come across such ideas? What's the secret?
When you're in brand marketing, your whole, job is to create an equity, to create, a brand presence that means something to people. And this is true of any field where you're trying to build a brand. You have to wake up every day curious and excited to learn about consumers. So consumer centricity and using powerful consumer insights as a competitive advantage is really, this is why big consumer packaged goods companies hire people out of MBA programs. They want highly motivated and curious, driven people to come in and say, okay, I'm going to spend every day trying to figure out what is that nugget of insight that I can find that we can use to be better than everybody else. So I have had over my career, some of my closest friendships in my career have been with my insights partners. There's a whole related field, which many, many people get into and have a similar passion to mine. All they do all day long is consumer research. And they work with people like me to bring the consumer insights and the business strategy together and really create a winning formula. So I've spent a lot of time in my life sitting in dark rooms and focus groups. In the old days, we used to travel to sit in the back room. Now it's all mostly virtual. But I've been around the world. I've been in China, Indonesia, South Africa, Russia. I've been in back rooms listening to people talk about different illnesses that they're dealing with, or taking care of babies, or managing their vision. It's listening to the people who you're trying to be meaningful for and figuring out what is their experience, what is going on with them. How does the area that you're trying to solve for them, like what's going on in their lives, and how can you intersect that with a proposition that resonates with them, that is effective in solving the problem, but speaks to them in a way that they see the need in their lives. So consumer centricity is a huge part of working in the marketing field. And I think if you like back in my MBA program, I loved this, focus group, consumer insights work. And there was a day that I thought, I can't believe I can actually get paid to do this for a living, because I find it so fascinating, consumer psychology and why people make the decisions that they make. So within the marketing space, deep understanding of your consumers and spending a lot of time molding propositions, the way you talk about what your brand can do for them. And it's a really iterative process. You start very wide, listening to people talk about their lives and their conditions. Then you start formulating hypotheses, and you start writing concepts. And then you go back and talk to more consumers about what they think of the concepts. And then you really get the language and you really understand the nuances, and you keep massaging it, and you keep going back out and talking to consumers until you nail the thing that you think is really the idea. And then you turn that into, I've had the privilege over my career of working with some fantastic advertising agencies. And, you work really hand in hand with advertising partners to turn this nugget of a consumer insight into a powerful advertising idea. And then that becomes, the ads that people see every day that are actually stimulating them to want to buy your product. So consumer centricity is a huge part of being good at marketing. And I think if you have a passion for consumer insights, I've worked with many senior executive men who work on feminine hygiene and get really passionate talking about menstruation. It's not a lived experience they have at all. They couldn't. But they are deeply interested in understanding the needs of women and what it's like for them. And so they can get excited about selling tampons, pads, whatever, whatever the end product is, because there's a real deep understanding of the person and how that product is going to connect with them. So because consumer insights is really the heart of everything, you can work in categories where you have no experience of what the end consumer is looking for, but because you're spending a lot of time listening to them, you become, you walk a mile in their shoes. So I think that's sort of the foundation. But the other thing I would say, and this is sort of where marketing and I like a little bit clash, because it's not my comfort zone. Consumer insights is totally my comfort zone. The other bit is deep analytics. So more and more, as marketing becomes more and more digital, there are so many metrics you can look at. There's so much deep granularity of data you can get into. So another angle for people who are considering marketing is, if you're deeply interested in data analytics and really like getting under the skin of how something works, there's a whole field of marketing which is about data and analytics, and being super good with numbers and super good at looking at Google Analytics. This is another way to really like polish your career in marketing. This is exactly why I'm in the role I'm in now, because I'm trying to get much closer to the actual performance marketing and like really hone this skill.
So if we sum it up, the universal rule: understand what people want and just do it for them, or understand what people issues are and solve them. And this is how you create the product that sells.
Yeah, and a lot of companies underestimate the art and science of marketing. A lot of people who don't work in the marketing space think it's fluffy, they think it's all about, writing ads, or it can be a very scientific field, because it's really about psychology. It's really about data. The other thing I didn't mention, which is another big part of it, is being really good at strategy. And I think what strategy boils down to for me is, it's not about you having a superior brain that can just figure out things that other people can't. Strategy for me, and it started in my MBA program, is using the right frameworks to organize information. So using strategic frameworks, whether it's Porter's 5 forces, 2x2 matrices of various descriptions, being able to create a format to put data into, that a pattern starts to emerge, that you go, I know what I can do with that. That's part of the art form too of being a good marketeer, is being able to see a picture of see the situation, put it into some kind of framework that you can make sense of it, to see, where does my brand sit? Where is the competition? What do I know about the marketplace? What are some, unique places where I could play that others are not, or where are some unique competitive advantages I have that others do not? And so being able to organize information in that way, I've seen, some really, I've worked with some incredibly smart people in my time. So having natural intelligence obviously you're going to get ahead. But even if you're not like, a Mensa scholar, you can be very, very good at strategy just by being very good at organizing information, so you can start to see patterns and do something with them. So that, I think, is another angle. Strategy is another angle of marketing that is often, I would say, maybe underappreciated. Marketeers at the end of the day are trying to build brands, and that is a lot about driving successful strategy.
I see. Talking about successful strategy and success, what are the qualities that made you successful? What's the blueprint?
I'll try to make this as transferable to other people as possible. So I'll talk about some of the things that I think have helped me succeed. One is positive attitude. Positive attitude is something that I've always tried to portray. I have also observed this, in people around me. Being glass half full and bringing positive energy and being full of possibilities is a huge way to get, people to lean in and want to help you, want to listen to your ideas and take them on board. Being dependable, always being the person who's going to deliver. So, if there's a project that needs to get done, and the company is depending on somebody to do it to make sure we achieve X, Y, or Z's deliverable, being a person that can be relied upon to make it happen, it is a little bit like being a swan, swimming like this, but all that's under the water, like being able to do this, but on the surface be serene so that you're not like portraying this total, craziness of your day-to-day might be crazy, but being able to show up in a way that is super professional, polished, and like gives people the confidence that you're making it happen is really important. Marketing careers, I mean, I don't know if anyone thinks that marketeers work 40 hours a week. We totally don't. You could work 24 hours a day. There's so much to do. Being brand manager is an incredibly demanding career. So being sort of all in and having this mindset that this is exactly what you want to be doing is super important. So being positive, being reliable, so that people know that you're going to make stuff happen. I also, another, sort of maybe part of who I am, I'm very people first. So I already talked about how I'm people first in terms of consumer insights. I'm also completely people first in the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm managing a team, the first place I will spend time in any given day is with the people on my team, making sure that, we are all, the communication is good. We all know what's going on. Everyone's feeling comfortable that they know what is expected of them. And then I think being really honest, I feel like being able to bring an informed but very honest opinion and not just sort of toe the party line and kind of go along with whatever the most senior person in the room is saying. You got to be able to bring an informed point of view, but really be brave enough to put it out there, because, at the end of the day, that's why I'm getting paid, right? Like that's what I'm here for, is to bring my expertise to the table. And so being brave enough to show up, and even if it's potentially an unpopular point of view, being able to deliver it in a way that it can at least be considered by the others in the meeting or the discussion. Those are some of the things I can point to.
Yeah. Well, delivering an idea that is not popular or against the ideas of the most senior people is something very frightening to do. Did you always have the ability to do it, or you learn it during your career?
I didn't wake up, fully formed, knowing exactly how to do this. It's definitely something you develop along the way, and it takes a lot of courage. But I think the way to do it is not to just bring a fully formed idea, but to bring data, to bring facts, to bring substantiation that at least makes people stop and consider what you have to say. So you can have an informed discussion, not a theoretical discussion. And so, I've had many good and bad experiences of this. You learn from the times it doesn't go so well. And if you take a moment to reflect afterward and think, oh, next time I'm going to do it differently, that really helps, because the next time you benefit from the learnings that you had. And so it's still, I don't know that I do it perfectly every day now, but I really I try to put myself out there and make sure that I'm not just like, yeah, whatever. Like I really try to make sure that I'm interjecting when it's, when it bugs me, like, no, we can't do it that way. Like I always try to show up with the fact or the eye-opening realization that might help somebody change their mind.
Great. I think that's very true, because first of all, you practice makes perfect, right? So you have to do it on a daily basis. You have to show up and say what you think. And then the other thing is numbers and data. Nobody can question that, right? So everybody can question your opinion, just opinion, but nobody can question data because they're there, right? If you don't believe me, believe
Absolutely.
the data. So that's a winning approach. Absolutely agree with you. You made quite a number of career changes. Some of them were within an organization, the same organization, but nevertheless, these are changes. You go from one to another and you have to start delivering. What is your approach? What do you do when you have a career change, a job change in the beginning? What is your blueprint? How do you make sure that you understand the business and hit the ground running quickly?
So this is super important because I've lived it from both sides. Like if you start a new job and you just sort of show up on the first day and you have no plan, you might wake up 3 months later and have achieved nothing because you're just kind of going along with the ride. So I've changed jobs a couple of times in the last few years and changed companies. And it has served me very well to, there's a book that I reread every time. My copy is very beat up. It's called The First 90 Days. It's really, it's a reminder to me that you need to hit the ground running on day one. Your first 90 days are incredibly important to establish your credibility, to establish relationships, and it almost becomes the foundation of everything else that comes after. So, in a way, the last few weeks of your previous job really need to be the first few weeks of your new job. So, even if you're still delivering, even if you still have deliverables that you need to be responsible for in the final weeks of whatever your old role is, carving out some time to start talking to people, to start researching, to start understanding what the situation is you're going into and what you need to be able to deliver. What are they asking for from you? And then what are some ways, the first month of your new job is really about listening, active listening and reflecting and taking notes afterwards and starting to join the dots between the things you're hearing from different people and starting to form a plan. The second month is really about getting the plan draft down and starting to run that past people and see how it's, role play it with, start talking about it with a few people that are, maybe closer to you, that are not the high stakes senior leadership yet, but like road test it. How is this line that I'm creating landing with people? And continuing to refine it, and then really being ready. It's quick, but after your first 60 days, you basically need to be ready to meet with the most senior person that is in your business unit and tell them what you're going to do differently. Like, what is it you're going to do that is going to achieve the objectives? And it sounds scary and it sounds really quick, but it is really quick. So if you don't walk into it having a plan and knowing you need to approach it this way, 90 days go by and you're still like listening and thinking and forming ideas, and people are like, why did we hire her again? So the ultimate affirmation of this, and this has now happened to me in my last 2 transitions, which I'm very, very proud of. When I joined Walgreens Boots Alliance, after my first 90 days, I presented to the chief operating officer of the corporation. And this is the conversation. My boss fed it back to me afterwards. I got off the call. Everybody in the room afterwards was like, ooh, that was a really good hire. Wow, where did we find her? Like, yeah, to have such a senior person, I get off the phone, my first interaction with her, and she was really like, wow, blown away. Because in 90 days, I had actually come up with something plausible, well thought through, and different than what they'd been hearing before. And joining the startup where I work now, Bioniq, within the first 90 days, checking in with the CEO of the company who hired me, the founder, he actually, it's on my LinkedIn. You could read it if you want to. He wrote me this really, really glowing 90-day sort of reflection about me joining his company. And I saved it and I read it often because I'm like, okay, when you're having a low moment, which some of it, we have daily, weekly, monthly, sometimes it happens, being able to reflect on, yeah, I'm good at this, like those kinds of affirmations. But that doesn't just happen randomly. You don't just walk into a new job and that happens after 90 days. You have to make it happen.
Talking about Bioniq, what's the differences, similarities and differences between the corporate and the startup? Very interesting topic.
It's a great question, Annie. And it'll a little bit sort of tease out why I'm at Bioniq right now, because a lot of what I'm about to say is the track that I've been on. So I worked at Johnson & Johnson for 20 years and Walgreens Boots Alliance for 2.5. These are Fortune 50 companies, right? They are multi-billion-dollar turnover, huge employee base, global, huge customer base companies. So with that there's a lot of, let's call it stability. Johnson & Johnson has been around for 125 years plus. Walgreens Boots Alliance, the individual brands of it, similar over 100 years. So there's some stability in let's say the market cap, the size and sort of weight of the company. There's a track record that you can build from. There are already roadmaps and blueprints of like, this has been successful in the past. We can keep building from this. You're not starting with a blank sheet of paper. There's a lot of career development. I mean, I would say I've benefited from 20 plus years of people investing, companies investing in me as an individual, as a leader, as a marketeer. So the amount of, investment in learning and development is huge in large corporations. So that has been a huge benefit to me. Similarly though, where you've got a big stable company with a lot of layers, there's established process, which can help you in a lot of instances, but can also make decision making slower, can be quite frustrating to try to move new ideas forward. So I've worked in innovation roles more than once in my career. And in large corporations, bringing the new and the untried and the like cutting edge is what people want, but then actually getting those ideas to be successful when competing with, let's say, the status quo is very hard. So big companies are a wonderful place for people to start their careers and really get developed and learn how, processes work, how big businesses operate. So I can't speak highly enough about my experience in J&J and Walgreens Boots Alliance. But some of the slow, more methodical and risk-averse approach, by the end of 20 years, I was like, okay, well, this is I'm kind of sick of hitting my head against a wall. And, so now I work at a startup. We're a Series A funded startup. We're less than 4 years old and still really trying to find our product market fit. So every day, there is no blueprint. There is no roadmap to follow. And there's no history of, oh yeah, well, we know that works, so we're going to do more of that. Every day you're trying to figure out what's going to stick. And that's really exciting, but it's also a little bit scary because there's no roadmap. So you're making it up as you go along. And it's also you're more exposed because, it's a smaller team, a smaller budget. There's much less room for error because every decision you make, every dollar you spend is precious to the business. It's not that it isn't in big corporations too. There's a lot of very tight budget management in large corporations. But, when I joined, the CEO said to me, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. The investors basically give us a parachute and push us out of, they give us a kit to make a parachute and throw us out of the plane. And the job is you have to build the parachute and put it on and deploy it so it stops you before you hit the ground.
Very good
that's
metaphor.
a totally different feeling
great.
than working. and it feels like that every day. So like we're very quick to make decisions. We don't have any layers. It's a small group of people making the decisions. We have to be really scrappy and creative. So that's actually, why am I doing this 20 plus years into my career? To learn, to do something different, to really expand my toolkit. So there are huge advantages to working in a big company. There are huge, disadvantages to working in a big company. It's the same in a startup. So I think it's really making decisions at the right point in your career that feel right, that taking a risk to go to a smaller company is the right thing to do based on where you are and what you want to learn. But it's been, I've been at Bioniq for just over 8 months. It's been a wild ride, but I almost can't imagine me 8 months ago and all the things I didn't know then. I've learned so much doing this job because it's a much smaller team. I don't have people who do all this stuff. I'm like doing the doing that I haven't done in 20 years because, in a bigger corporation, a more junior person reporting to me would be doing a lot of this stuff. In this job, there is nobody else. So I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm getting exposure to a whole lot of things I didn't know before. So it's been really, it's crazy. It's a little like daunting to try to wake up every day and figure it out, but I also feel like I'm learning a lot. So I think if you can keep that, keep reflecting on that and how much you're developing in whatever role you're in, it feels like the craziness sometimes, when it is crazy, it's for a good reason. Like it's okay. I can manage that.
There are several lines of thought. There are people who say, just like you, saying that it was great to start with a corporate job because gave you you learned a lot, you were trained, etc. All the benefits that come with a corporate job. But other people say that once you are in a corporate job, it's that much more difficult to go to the other side because people get complacent and kind of very comfortable in where they are and then don't move. And the other thing is if you start in a smaller company, a startup, you learn everything 10x because as you said, you're 5 people in the company and everybody does everything. So, and your trajectory to a management position is so much more direct than, let's say, Johnson & Johnson or any other big corporation. You're 5 and then you become 20 and then you become 30 and suddenly you're managing 10 people. It's not like, oh, let's see, maybe in 2 years you become a director. Oh, no. Let's see, in maybe 5 years you become an MD. Probably depends on people temperament and quite a high degree of luck of who they meet and what are they interested in at that point of time, right?
Absolutely.
You are on the Forbes UK list of 50 women to watch in 2022. How do you get on this list?
So it's interesting because it's not, you have no involvement in getting on these lists, right? You're basically discovered. So
yeah, but still
it was
discovered.
Like
so you do something.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It was so there was no active process, let's say, of like lobbying to be on the list, but I think this formula is probably how it works. So one is being really clear about your personal brand. So, I work in brand marketing on a day-to-day basis. I'm deeply, experienced in building brands. Doing that for yourself as a professional is super important. So who are you? What are you good at? What do you stand for? What do you have to bring to the world? Being really clear about your personal brand. And I got to my personal brand after working with an executive coach. I had been working for 20 years and I really wanted to take a point of reflection and think about what I wanted to do for the next 20 years. So I worked with a coach and she really helped me think about what's important to me. What am I good at? What kinds of situations help me thrive and really excel? And what are the opposite? So what are the places where I'm not comfortable and I'm not good at things? And and again, I mentioned strategic frameworks. She brought me a few really nice strategic frameworks where I could organize my thinking. And so at the end of our coaching, I think we met for, 10 or 15 sessions. At the end of my sessions, I had a blueprint of my personal brand, which, I probably could have gotten to on my own, but doing it with her was a very deliberate process. And so this was way before I was looking for a job. I was still at J&J, but I was just starting to think. And so I had this sort of blueprint of my personal brand. She and I talked a lot about how you manifest that personal brand in the world. So making sure your LinkedIn and your LinkedIn profile, all your activity on LinkedIn, all the visible things that you do manifest the pillars of your personal brand. I have been, because I worked for some big name companies, I've had some great speaking engagements where I've been invited to go, be on a panel, speak on stage, using those opportunities to manifest your personal brand, to show what you're about. And then also the networking opportunities that those enable, the people you meet, the connections you make. So I think being visible. So you can't assume that everyone's just going to know who you are. It's not about being famous. It's just about being known. And so, the LinkedIn algorithm is becoming more and more savvy, right? So the more engaged you are on LinkedIn, the more you are visible. So having a point of view, showing, posting stuff that feels authentic to you, sharing important, interesting content that you think would have value to other people. So I think it's really about knowing what you're about and then showing the world. So that's then you're discovered. And that's how doors open to new job opportunities, or your career can kind of unfold by people finding you, even if you're not actively day to day looking.
I speak with so many people, and it's underlying truth. Can I say this? That you have to advertise yourself. You have to be your own best advocate, because nobody else is going to do it for you, right? It's your personal thing and your personal ambition, and to show the world who you are. If you don't do it, it's very unlikely anybody will know about you. You know, in a company, how many people know about you, right? The people that are around you, your boss, let's say, and sometimes your boss's boss if you do something good. But if you are on LinkedIn, or you deliberately look for opportunities where people can learn about you, then your opportunities and options, they increase in geometrical progression. I wish people could understand that, because it's so powerful. I've been through that and I know what it is. You've been through that, you know what it is. So that's why we're having this discussion, so people can hear and actually do it and start advertising themselves. Let's switch now gears to AI. AI is very topical thing to talk about, but not only that, it's the world is moving into a new direction so fast, and AI is actually everywhere. How is it going to change the marketing profession?
There are a lot of ways that marketers can harness AI, but there are, I think we're all learning day by day where the world is going to go, right? It's exploding.
Yeah.
So what I said before about being really good with data and analytics is super important for marketing professionals. In my Johnson & Johnson and Walgreens Boots Alliance life, that 20 years of my career, I was working in strategic marketing in a global or regional role, very, working on global strategies, global advertising campaigns. I was very far from, let's say, buying the media in a local market, or actually, placing the social media, the paid social media ads, or managing Google campaigns. There is, marketing now is really about showing up in the places that your consumers are going to see you. And that becomes a job of being able to manage algorithms. So, be really understanding the evolution of the way the Google algorithm works, the way search engines are evolving, understanding how ads are served, how audiences are created, being able to master the analytics that matter on a day-to-day basis to track performance of campaigns. There is a huge explosion in some ways, buying media is becoming less and less sophisticated because there are less tools available to you. As the algorithms of the big platforms get more sophisticated, you have sort of less control, and you need to therefore be really on top of what's happening. So you're not just throwing money out the window on a campaign that's running that the algorithms have taken over. So placement of ads is hugely influenced by the evolution of AI among the media platforms. There's some really exciting, very, very useful evolutions in AI to generate creative. I used to spend months developing an ad idea, writing a script. We used to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a TV commercial. There is actually quite a lot of very good AI created advertising content out there. So for marketers, getting really savvy about how to use AI to generate actual content that you can use to promote your brand. I mean, I'm a very untechy person, and I've gotten super comfortable using generative AI to mine, data and like ask, getting really good at writing prompts. So I work in a startup. I've got to be really good at this, right? I've got to get quickly to the end. So like being able to write some prompts that, within 10 minutes probably get me to an answer it would have taken me days or weeks to get to in the past. So I think one thing I can say for myself, if I had stayed in my more comfortable corporate life, let's say, I would have probably been much slower to adopt a lot of the AI tools, because I really wouldn't have been so exposed and it wouldn't have been such a necessity for me. So, I'm not a techie person, and I grew up before the internet, right? So like it's not a world that I live in as a native. But I've really learned how important it is in my job, and I've really, I've gotten much more fluent in where AI is taking us and the tools that I can use today to make it work for me.
Absolutely. I just can't imagine working without Chat GPT and all the other apps that are, helping you write, correcting you, making notes. Thousand things that suddenly made my life so much better. If tomorrow they disappear, oh God, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It will be a rude awakening.
The other thing I would say, Annie, because I mentioned before how passionate I am about working in the healthcare space, it's an amazing opportunity how AI can transform healthcare. So the reason I chose to work for a startup that works in the space of personalized vitamins is that in my previous roles, I had started to observe how personalization and really one-to-one care for an individual is becoming more and more possible in medicine and in healthcare in general, and the way that digital overlays to physical products can really make a huge difference for people. So, being able to harness technology to get people better solutions to improve their health is that is it's already happening. And I would like to think that working at Bioniq, I'm on the cutting edge of making that happen because our entire product, exists based on the convergence of a physical product and a digital enablement of that. We use AI to generate personalized vitamin formulas for individuals to help them optimize their nutrient levels. So this is for me it's again like this is part of my personal brand. This is the mission that I'm on, right? I work in marketing but in a space that I feel like is going to improve people's lives. And so being on the forefront of, let's say, health tech and how health can be improved through technology feels great. So like when I'm having a crazy day, I'm like, yeah, but at least I'm doing something that matters.
You're in that lucky position to have your mission and vision about life and how life should be aligned with your work, and that's really great. It's always so much nicer and so much more rewarding to be in such a position, right?
We spend more of our waking lives at work than with our families. Like
Absolutely.
if you don't love your job, I feel like life is just not that fulfilling. So
Exactly.
being smart about at whatever stage you are in your career, taking stock of like, how's it going? Am I loving what I'm doing? If I'm not loving it, how do I get to the next step? What could I do to explore either related fields that are, close enough to my current experience, or even be brave enough to make a really dramatic change to something that is going to be more fulfilling to, what do you want to get up every day and go work on? My career has taken me in a few different directions, but it's been pretty easy to chart that path toward what's going to make me happy.
Talking about the people that really take this decision to leave a job they don't like and go out in the world and start doing something by themselves, their own business. What is your advice to them? What should they do so marketing can be beneficial for them? Should they hire a marketing person? But if they don't have money in the beginning to hire, how would they get comfortable with marketing so it can play in their favor?
So I think for startup founders, the first piece of advice, which is probably the most fundamental to developing their product and finding their product market fit, is really being consumer centric. Because in my last role at Walgreens Boots Alliance, I actually spent a lot of time meeting with founders in the healthcare space who were, many of whom were university researchers who were, the product that they were founding their company out of had come from years of research and clinical testing from a university academic background. And I was amazed talking to so many of them, how little touch they had with the actual audience that they were trying to serve. Technology for the sake of technology, the world doesn't need, right? If there's no need that your technology can really serve, you're not going to get very far. So let's not even call it marketing. Let's just call it consumer understanding. At the very beginning of setting up your business and thinking about how you're going to build a business out of your idea is really making sure there is an audience of people who have a need for what you are creating and that you really understand how it fits their lives. Because there are a lot of examples where you could come up with a solution, but it doesn't actually make a difference for people, you're not going to sell any of it because they don't fundamentally need what you're providing. So this is maybe just you don't even have to be good at marketing. You just have to be good at understanding. You need to listen. You need to listen to what consumers are saying. And there's a lot that AI can help. You can quickly get to a lot of observation by seeing, what's being talked about in social media, for example. That's probably the fundamental thing. Then you need to go once you're ready to go start establishing your product, you need to start advertising it. You need to start, generating awareness so people can consider buying it and then hopefully buy it. But I wouldn't start with, I need to be good at marketing. I would start with, I need to be good at understanding consumers and make sure that there's a fundamental consumer insight baked into your proposition. That's probably the number one ingredient in the recipe for success that I could give to a startup founder.
That's very valuable. Thank you. It helps me too. I'm starting thinking now, am I answering all the consumers and the people that work with me? Let's finish the podcast with again advice from you for those people who listen and watch the podcast and they want to have a career in marketing. What is your advice to them? That's the first. And then after that, is a marketing profession something that people can switch to mid-career?
Okay, starting with the first one. So I think if this is how you'll know if you could be a career marketeer. I think if listening to people talk about what's important to them and why they make buying decisions is interesting to you, marketing could be a great career for you. If that doesn't interest you, probably something else. So first, if consumer insights and consumer psychology kind of gets you up in the morning, absolutely career in marketing. Great. Being really willing to read, to learn, to get really good at and comfortable with analyzing data and using strategic frameworks. Very important to, even if it's just on the job training that you try different stuff, you read some things and try them out in your day job, that can be hugely, educational to learn as you go. I would say seek out some good mentors. There are, I mean, all the marketeers I know are super passionate about what they do and really, really happy to help people at earlier stages in their career. So talking to other marketing professionals about their skill sets, maybe the career track that they've been on is a great way to imagine and get some support and maybe get some connections and some introductions for, next roles.
Is it possible, let's say I'm in banking, but then in mid-career I decide to become a marketeer? Is that possible? What should I do?
Sure. Absolutely. Because, financial acumen and being comfortable with figures and numbers, as I said, is a fundamental part of being what a good performance marketer can do. So I think assessing what's your motivation and then what transferable skills do you have? Because you'll need to, it's not easy to get a job, especially in today's market. So being able to pitch yourself and your existing experience in a way that makes it clear what you know how to do and what the job entails are a good fit. Being like I did, I got an MBA because I realized I didn't really have the right skill set for the career that I needed. So being open to, some additional training, or in a lot of cases, a career change means, let's call it taking a salary cut, you might be at a very senior level in the career that you're operating in. You may need to be willing to take a little bit of a step backwards, go in at a more junior level position just to get your foot in the door. And, being sure that it's the right thing you want to do, because you may have to take a salary cut. You may need to make some sacrifices to change. But then if it's really something that you're passionate about, it's all worthwhile. It will pay out in the end because your passion for the new job will make you good at the new job because you're really invested in getting to the level that's going to help you be successful.
Marni, that was such a great discussion. This episode is really full of ideas, thoughts, advice on how can one become a marketeer, how can they excel in that job. And thank you so much for all your advice and all the sincerity and openness of all the ups and downs and what does it mean to succeed today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Annie. Thank you so much.